Hey folks, John with Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in the computer business. So, getting back to that massive donation box we had a couple videos ago, if you haven't checked it out, definitely take a look at it. I'll throw a link to it down here in the description. That was a lot of computers. Now, I'll tell you, out of all of the laptops that were on there, and actually the count ended up going up, there ended up being 17 different laptops. All of them were just Frankenstein pieces of junk. Nothing worked. I managed to put one complete laptop together and get it restored, and that'll actually be a donation freebie. So if anybody out there needs a laptop and you can't afford a computer, give me a call. Come on down here to the barn. We'll work something out for you. Now today, we're going to go ahead and get to those 5 computers, the actual towers that were there. I'm going to do this a little different though. So hang tight one second. I'll tell you what I got in mind. So what we're going to do, folks, in the interest of time, because I know this could take a little bit of time to go ahead and get all these looked at and checked out, I'm going to pull them up one at a time. We're going to look at them cosmetically first. We'll crack them open, see what it looks like inside, see what we're actually dealing with. I suspect that based on what I've seen just visually, we're looking at stuff from probably the late 90s, early 2000s, so not a lot of real value there. With the exception of one computer, it looks like it might be a decent machine, assuming it can be restored and we don't find a whole bunch of messed up parts, and another donation computer. So that's a good thing. But, all right, well, without further ado, we'll get to the first one on the list. Here we go. All right, guys, so the first candidate up to bat here, and I'm going to try to focus in Stumpy here just a little bit. Not that we ought to find anything too terribly interesting inside this case, but who knows? We may have opened this thing up and gold may fall out, but probably not. So, all right. So what we've got here is we've got an old Gateway 366. Now I remember selling these things back in the early to mid '98 days. So Windows 98. We're probably dealing with an early Pentium 2 here. Let's take a look. We'll crack the case open and see what we've got going here. By the way, guys, I know a lot of you've seen me. They're absolutely not a sponsor, but the iFixit tools. Fantastic. I have not managed to destroy one yet. And I used to go through at least a couple tool sets a year, just stripping them out or messing them up, but very high quality. Yeah, keep that in mind. All right, let's crack this thing open. Now, I will tell you, once again, guys, I do not script any of this. I want you to see it exactly as I see it. So I have no idea what we're going to find on any of these computers. I haven't even tried to fire them up yet. So for all I know, nothing works. We'll see. All right. Okay, let's see what we got going here. All right, looks like, well, we were jarred rather. Oh, I remember these. Okay, for those of you who don't know, there was a period of time when actual Pentium processors, they experimented with putting them on what looked like a cartridge. So instead of actually having a slot on the motherboard, they literally were on a cartridge that would insert into the board. That was actually, looks like exactly what we're dealing with right here, as a matter of fact. This is, in fact, I'd be willing to bet that is a Celeron processor. Yeah, got an old modem in here. It does actually have an AOpen PCI VGA card. So if this client works or not, I'll probably end up using that because they're great for testing, assuming the card works. Looks like we've got a hard drive in there with a date of, let's see, 99. I can't tell what size it is yet. And it looks like everything is IDE on this, so no SATA. And we do have a CD-ROM drive. So it's an older system. It's definitely a Celeron. I can tell that by just looking at it. Let's plug this thing in and see if it even comes on. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and fire her up and see if we get anything out of this at all. I want to stand back. This thing, by the way, is a little grimy. So not as grimy as one of them you're going to see. It takes the cake. We may actually do something creative with that one. We'll get to it. All right, we're going to go ahead and fire it up. And make sure our screen is on, which it is. All right. 2 beeps and then 1 beep. That is as I recall, that's a RAM code. If it beeps again, typically That would tell me that. Yep, let's see. We're going back into power saving on the screen, so we're not getting any video signal out. All right, so it's looking like the first one is going to be a... I'm going to reseat the RAM real quick, and we're going to give it a shot and see if that fixes the thing. Hang tight. And as you can see, guys, even after reseating the RAM, we apparently have no video at all. I did also, during this, just to check it, I went ahead and I shifted the position of the video card. It's a PCI video card, up to a different slot just to verify. I don't know if the card's any good, though, so I could be barking up the wrong tree there. I will tell you, though, that, yeah, at this point, we're not going to go any further with this one, and we're going to move to the next one. Hang tight. All right, guys, so our second candidate. Now, this is a custom-built system. I can tell that. Not only the fact that it's not name branded, but this was a really generic case that I remember actually using back in the day. It looks like, and I'm going to go ahead and try to show Stumpy here what we got on the back of this, just to kind of feed further into that theory. This motherboard, that's an AT style keyboard, which is the large round style. In fact, I'm not even certain I have an AT keyboard here. We'll find out. But as you can see, it didn't even have USB. They actually had added on USB. It does have a modem, but this is what really caught me. Somebody installed 2 sound cards in this, and I don't know if that was for gaming purposes or why, but I am curious as to what they did and, more importantly, what these sound cards are. So let's take this thing apart. Let's see what we got in here. Hang tight. All right, guys, let me get a little view of this here. This is a little older than I had even actually thought. This is actually would be a pretty good lesson in transition periods. Back in the old days, and even this one's a little more advanced because at least the controls, the IDE controllers are on the board. Back in the old days, they actually had ISA cards that would slide into these, and there were even PCI cards also, that all of your devices, your CD-ROMs, your hard drives, and everything else would actually plug into. This board is actually just one step above that, and I'll tell you, the reason I know that is, number one, if you look down here at the memory, not only do you have a DRAM, the longer DIMMs like everybody's used to seeing, but you actually have little memory sticks in here that we used to use. And I mean, this is actually pretty interesting. I'd like to know what this is. One other thing that's kind of interesting is this motherboard, and I've never actually seen this before. If you look at the power connection on it, it's got the old style where you've got the flat cable that plugs into it, and the motherboard also has the new style plugs. So this is a pretty interesting board to me. We've got 4 PCI and 3 ISA slots. Gotta love it. You guys cannot actually see that, but the BIOS chip down there says 24-hour burn-in. So the processor is located up here. Let's see what we're dealing with here. That is, okay. This is actually a history lesson in itself, folks. I'm going to focus in on that. That is a Cyrix processor. It is I believe a 66, yeah, it's a Cyrix M266. This was actually kind of interesting. I remember when the Cyrix processors came out, they were a little deceptive. In other words, what they would say is they'd say, a Cyrix M266, and it was actually running at, 40 megahertz. So it was designed to make it seem like it was a lot faster than it was. They were good processors. I never had a lot of overclocking them. I burned a few of them up, though. But yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. I haven't seen a Cyrix processor in quite a while. Let's see if it works. Hang tight. All right. Okay, guys, so as you can see, what I did is I got in the system here and I reseated all the cards, and before we go any further here, as you can see, we do actually have a BIOS up. One thing I noticed, the sound card thing. This board did have onboard audio. That was actually an option. That wasn't something that you would normally get. You'd have an add-on card. But in this particular case, it did have onboard sound, which is why it had that card slot in there. It also, however, has a Crystal audio card installed. And I remember these cards, they were very inexpensive, and it was the cheapest way to get audio onto the system if you didn't. Now, I'm not sure why it was added on afterwards, except for possibly the joystick controller, but that's what the mystery was there. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. Let me see. I have my USB plugged into that. I have zero hope of this actually working. Let's take a look and see if it actually did. What a concept. Okay, so what we've got going here, by the way, there are 32 megs of RAM. That's megs. For all of you younger people out there, yeah, that was actually a pretty good amount of RAM for a system like this. When this came out, that probably cost them at least $300-400. That was an option. In fact, I remember back in the 486 days, a little bit before this, when RAM had reached a peak price of almost $50 a megabyte. So, you know, putting in a 4 meg card was prohibitively expensive back then, so people didn't do it. So yeah, that was a pretty nice addition to this. And let's see here. All right. All right, so one thing we can tell by the BIOS here is, number one, the time is off, which means it wasn't going to boot anyway. So let's go ahead and let's set that, just because if there's any chance of it actually booting, we want it to give it a shot. So let's see here. Besides, I don't know about you guys, I'm kind of, well, I was going to say I'm wondering if this is Y2K compliant, but of course it is, because you've got a 4-digit year here. If that was a 2-digit year, obviously it wouldn't be, but we'll take a look here and see. So, all right. Now this system, given the fact that it actually works, believe it or not, I think I have a plan for this one. I've been wanting to build an early Windows, we're talking like Windows 95, maybe even Windows 3.1 and DOS system for running a couple of my old DOS games, particularly one that I got from that YouTuber, the 8-Bit guy, that he wrote for DOS. And I think that it'd be kind of cool. I mean, yeah, I can emulate it, but I think it'd be neat to run it in the environment it was actually written in. So, yeah, so I may end up doing that. But okay, so let's go ahead and let's save this and see what the odds are this thing actually boots. Yeah, this is definitely old. Cyrix, yep, there it is. Cyrix 2, 266, 1 megabyte VGA. Gotta love that, man. That's a powerful video card right there. All right. Look at that. Windows 98. I know what you guys are thinking. You wish you had a Windows 98 machine in front of you. I know. I know. All right, let's let this boot in and we'll see what we got. All right, guys. So it's trying to boot right now. It actually went to a black screen here, but I wanted to show you something. This, you see how it's removing this command, the BP CD-ROM MSCDEX/D? This was actually the command you used to have to use in the AutoExec file back in the Windows 3.1 and even the early Windows 95 days for the system to identify the CD-ROM drive. One of these days we may go back and do a whole episode on like loading Windows 3.1 and loading Windows 95 because it was exciting. A lot of this stuff had to be done from DOS. So, all right, looks like we are booting. Unfortunately, it's not seeing my USB mouse, and it's not seeing the keyboard either because it's a USB keyboard. It's ironic that the motherboard saw it, but Windows is choosing not to. All right. Let me see if I can locate a PS2 mouse real quick. Hang tight. Back with you guys. Look, a PS2 mouse. What a concept. All right, so the biggest problem here is that I'm going to have to reboot this computer because PS2 mice, unlike USB, do not auto-detect when you plug them in. So we're going to have to plug this thing in, reboot this thing, and let it go through that entire boot cycle again. So hang tight one sec. We're going to boot it up, and I'll be right back with you. All right, guys, so here's an interesting one for you. When you're dealing with this ancient equipment, there's no telling how long this thing has been sitting in a closet or under a desk or out in a barn or whatever. When I went ahead and put the PS2 mouse in, I went ahead to reboot the computer. It wouldn't boot. I started getting errors, and it didn't even detect the primary hard drive. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and reseated everything in here. And I've got the hard drive. I reseated the hard drive, make sure everything, and I can hear it spinning up. So we're going to try to boot this into the BIOS and see if it sees it and see if it'll boot for us this time. If not, we'll go ahead and move to the next system. That's our plan. So here we go. Cross your fingers. I hear it clicking away. That's a good sign. We'll see if the BIOS actually even identifies the fact that it exists. And it's not looking good. This is what it had done before. Nope, see? It is seeing the CD-ROM drive, but it's not seeing the hard drive. So the hard drive has failed. It gave us one good boot, rebooted it, hard drive died. Well, welcome to the world of old equipment. However, this is a system that I'm going to work on. So I'm going to be holding on to this one and probably turning it into my DOS machine. So let's get to the next machine. Be right back with you. All right, guys. So our next candidate up here is what looks like it's an old IBM 300 GL. Same deal. Everything looks like it is integrated. It does actually have the video integrated. There is an add-on sound card. And on the back it is written, and I'll try to get something. I don't know if this applies or not, but somebody has written 32 megabyte 95, which I'm assuming means Windows 95. I hope it means Windows 95. That'd be actually kind of cool. So let's crack this open and see what we're looking at here. Hang tight. All right, guys. So this was probably at some point a business computer. It had that little lock on the back of it, which I had to mechanically remove. Yeah, so that lock will no longer be useful. So let's see what we've got going in here. Yeah, it's actually remarkably clean in here for what year it is. All right, so I'm going to get Stumpy over here, get him in position. There we go. All right. So we're dealing with a very generic sound card. We do actually have DIMMs in this one. Now, this is an add-on. This has apparently been added on, so we'll see what that is. Looks like the BIOS battery was at one point changed and soldered, so they must have broken that off when they changed the battery. All right, let's see what processor we're dealing with here. Let's see what we got. All right, just by looking at that, I can tell that that's an early era Pentium. Let's clean it up a little bit and see what we got here. And to do that, I use a little bit of this this alcohol. That was another suggestion I'd gotten from another YouTuber on how to clean plastics and stuff. But boy, it seems to take thermal paste off pretty good too. So, all right, let's see what we got going here. Yes, it is. Oh, I remember these. The Pentium with MMX technology. Yeah, so we'll take a look at that and see what speed we're dealing with. All right, so since we went ahead and took this off, I'm going to go ahead and apply some more thermal paste here just in case this does start so we don't damage it. And then we'll fire it up and see what we're dealing with. Hang tight. All right, guys, so let's fire her up and see what it does. I'm rather curious about this one myself, see what it is. If this was a business machine, it may be passworded if it works at all. We will find out shortly. All right. It did come on. We got some activity down here. Let's see if we get anything on screen. All right. And actually, this has had a RAM expansion put into it. Remember I had mentioned that there was definitely an add-on there. Let's see here. This looks like it's got 128 megs of RAM. Oh, 96. What would that be? 64 and a 32. So it's got a 64 and a 32 in there. That's what we're looking at. All right, so yeah, there you go. The following errors. Keyboard. Yeah, my daughter, who actually helps me film here, just pointed out the fact that I probably ought to keep a PS2 keyboard and a mouse here while I'm doing this, considering all of it pretty much uses that. So we're going to go ahead and plug in the PS2 keyboard. I was going to use the USB, but we are dealing with Windows 95. So, all right, here we go. There we go. Now it's working. Ooh, this is an old BIOS. All right, this is one of the original Pentiums at 200 megahertz. Don't be jealous, guys. 200 megahertz. It does have a math coprocessor. Believe it or not, that was an issue sometimes. 95 megs of extended RAM. So 64 and a 32, it looks like, is what they're running in here. Everything else, it is seeing the hard drive, which is actually a actually, is that a 25 gig? Yeah. So hold on a second here. And let's see if it'll boot. And we're going to go with a fast post here because this can take a while to count that RAM up. All right, good sound. That was the floppy crunching away. Windows 98. Now the question is, will this one boot into Windows 98? As you all saw, the last one was a little bit flaky in that regard, so let's see what we get on this one. All right, so as you can see, Windows actually saw the monitor. I was actually kind of curious to see what it would do there. And it saw it as plug and play. That's fine. All right. Now, of course, as you all know, this has a sound card installed, but we're not going to get any audio because I don't have a cable plugged into here and we're not on HDMI. So, all right. Oh, yeah, there's a couple of stories for you here, folks. This was, it looks like it could have been, actually, this looks more like a home computer. NetZero was a big internet provider back in the day. They were literally one of the first. We'll give you free internet access if you'll let us put a big banner across the bottom of your screen. And I had a lot of clients that stuck with it forever because they didn't want to pay for internet. So dial-up internet, NetZero, dealt with the banner and surfed the net at that ridiculously slow speed. But at the time, it wasn't. So, all right, let's see what else we got going here. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Windows 98 was a vast improvement over Windows 95, especially depending on, or particularly depending on what version you were on. If this is version C, it probably is, but we'll see. And it is definitely moving at a pretty slow pace here, so we'll see what we got going. Believe it or not, guys, this was not abnormal back in the day. Although I will say this is running a little slower than even I remember them. But once again, we're dealing with an ancient hard drive here. So, all right, so we've got a 2 gigabyte hard drive with 345 megs free. So it's got a lot of stuff on it, whatever it is. They've got the dial-up connection set up for NetZero, so it's actually auto-populating over here. That's what's happening. It's all booting up in the background here. But, all right, so that's what we got to work with. Yeah, we can see if there's any, oh, they had games folder. Let's see what games they had back in the day here. Golf and Ultima 1. Okay, guys, that's not a joke. That's actually Ultima 1. Dare we try it? Of course we do. Let's see what happens here. Ultima 1. That was a text game, as I recall. Full text. But, unless it's just being slow, I don't think it's going to work. Yep, not looking good. Oh well. All right, so we know this one's kind of flaking. But hey, you got to see 98. It did work. Pretty interesting insight on that too. So, on to the next one. All right, guys, so this one is going to be interesting. Now, I want to give you a little background here on this. When I first saw, this was actually in that pile of stuff. It was kind of on the bottom at the time. I asked the guy where he had gotten this one. I was curious, and he said that he had gone to a garage sale, and some lady just threw it at him and said, "Here, take this." What I found really interesting about this, I think on the last video you heard me dub this computer Swampy. Let me show you why. When, number one, you can see how disgusting it is, and I wanted to leave it as gross as it was so that you guys could actually see this. But with Stumpy here, I want you to take a look at the back of this thing. that is basically stem to stern, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, solid rust. Yeah, that this computer looks like it's been sitting pretty much underwater. I mean, you can just to look at the video connections on this thing. I'm going to try to get Stumpy in here so it'll, but golly, there's no way you could actually just plug a connection into that and there's any chance of it even working. So when we open this thing up, for all I know, some sort of swamp creature might pop out. But in the interest of finding it out, we're going to do it together. So this is one of the old compact Presarios. I sold a ton of these back in the day. These were actually one of the best sellers. They were cheap, they were entry level, they were easy to work on, and people just liked them because they just worked. But they were Celeron, so they were lower end systems. All right, so it's also got that proprietary Funky Star thing, which, by the way, I fix it. Great kid, I'm telling you. Yeah, squeak. Here we go. Anything jumps out and bites me, guys, you remember. You hear that one squeak? Yeah, I can't even believe this thing's actually coming apart. This is terrifying. That's if it will come apart. We still haven't gotten it all the way down yet. All right, guys, here we go. The moment of truth. So I managed to get those 3 screws out. This case actually slides out from the back. It was kind of an interesting build design. All right, I'm going to very gently and carefully pull this out. I can see spider webs and yuckies everywhere. So, all right, move the case aside here. Here we can see what we can see. Yeah, I remember these designs. They were pretty smashed in here, so you can't really get a view of the mother. All right, guys, so here's what we got. Basically what we've got is an old Celeron processor with 1 stick of RAM in there. It looks like the inside is no better than the outside. And after getting in there a little bit, I noticed it looked like there were it kind of looked like Black Widow webs and egg sacs. So yeah, as far as Swampy goes here, we may not go too much further with this one. Obviously, we can't even test it because plugging anything into these ports would be pointless. Nothing is going to come up. So yeah, Swampy, interesting, garbage. We're going to be pitching Swampy. All right. After we sanitize and disinfect it, I'm afraid I'm going to get tetanus from touching it. Hang tight, we're going to bring up the next machine. Now this is the one that we will probably go ahead and do the restoration on, assuming it works. So let's see what we got to work with. Hang tight. All right, guys, so the last one we've got is actually a Dell Optiplex. Now, this one is at least a little bit closer to the current century. This had Windows Vista on it, I think, but I believe that the hard drive had been removed. That's what the owner had told me. But he had said that it was actually a functioning machine. So, taking a look at the back, you can see they do actually have an add-on video card here. I have no idea what that is, but it is DVI, so we'll see what that is. And that's about it. It's got onboard LAN, onboard audio. It looks like 6 USB ports. It's got 1 external SATA drive. So, and it's got a console port, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and crack this one open, and let's see what's inside of it. Hang tight. All right, guys. So, every now and then when you do these little bonus segments or computers like this, and you film it unscripted, which is what I try to do, you get a little surprise. We got a little surprise on this one. I'm not talking about Swampy and whatever spiders are crawling around. This one, inside the case, leaning up against one of the cards, was an actual full version of Windows 7 Home Premium. And let me see something. It looks like, let's see what this is. Along with the license and the actual the registration key. Very interesting. So they did upgrade this one to Windows 7 at one point from Vista, and this was the CD, and this is their key. Talk about a great find for this computer. So that one will end up going with this machine, because odds are we'll probably have to use it to reload Windows on this one. As he did tell me, no, actually there is a hard drive installed too, so I'm not sure what the story is with that. We'll look at it here in just a second. Looks like kind of... Okay, that is a DVI pass-through card. So you're still going to be using the video off of the motherboard, but you're actually going to, you can use either the VGA here or the DVI here, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so basically, it's almost like it was a placeholder. I'm not sure what that was for, unless they had, they may have had multiple monitors. They could have had one monitor that only had one output. There's a couple of reasons they could have done it. Looks like we do have one stick of RAM in there. It looks to be a 2 gigabyte, so that's good. And since it's newer RAM, we actually may be able to go ahead and upgrade this one up to 8 gigs, which would be really nice for whomever gets it. So let's go ahead and fire this up and see what we're dealing with. Hang tight. Okay, the PS2 keyboard mouse can now go because I can use the good one. All right. Crap. Battery's low on that one, and I can't get the cable long enough to get over here. Is that one longer? Yeah, not by much, but it is longer. Long enough to at least turn around. All right, let's see what it does. Interesting. Well, the VGA port doesn't appear to be functioning, which is not like totally unexpected, especially with this add-on card. They had to have done it for a reason. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and boot this up and see what we've got to work with. Sorry about the weird angle on Stumpy here. I had to plug her in because the battery was getting low. But it should give you a good shot. Oh yeah, this was definitely somebody's computer. Looks like it belonged to Valerie. Valerie didn't have a password on her computer. What do we learn from this one? All right, so we're going to end up formatting this one. We're not going to get too nosy with her stuff. We don't care about that. So let's go ahead and take a look. Even though, like I said, we don't really care about the personal stuff, and all that goes away anyway. But this is not Windows 7. This appears to be Windows 10, which is very interesting. And it is Windows 10. It is Windows 10 Home. And it's a registered copy of Windows 10 Home. Intel dual core, 3 gigahertz with 2 gigs of RAM. All right, that's good. Let's see here. And I'm really curious as to when they upgraded this to Windows 10. It would have had to been relatively recently. All right, Intel Q45 Express chipset. That's their onboard. By the way, the VGA, the onboard VGA port, was actually disabled. I had to plug into that DVI port in order to get video on screen. I'm not sure why they did that, but it had something to do with how this thing was connected wherever it was at the time. information on it? Let's have hard drive running in here. Oh, the system's actually pretty snappy with this too, which is kind of nice. Oh, it's a very small hard drive. Okay, yeah, guys, it's an 80 gig hard drive. So that's probably the stock drive that came with this. My guess would be. And when he said that he removed the hard drive, I can see in here where there was a drive below that. My guess is that was probably their data drive. So since this has already got Windows 10 on it, and even though the primary hard drive is kind of small, what I'll probably do is add in a secondary hard drive, maybe a 500 gig or something like that, just as a storage drive. And this will become a donation machine. So I'm going to go ahead and do the restoration on this one, and then we'll have this one up for donation here shortly. So keep your eye on that. If there was somebody in my channel the other day that was commenting that they really needed a computer, this will be the one. I'm going to go ahead and get this one done here shortly. Get this one all restored. I'll get a secondary hard drive put in there and get it tested. I want to make sure everything is solid. And then you can get with me or just come on down here and see me, and we'll get you set up. And while I'm looking around on this computer, this did apparently belong to somebody else. It appears there may be some private documents on it, so that's why I've got Stumpy turned off, and you're looking at me, and over here is where we're looking. That just to preserve privacy. I am going to go ahead and format this entire thing. I'll leave the primary hard drive in there, but I'll put in a secondary, or who knows, I may just format one big drive and stick it in there and be done with it. So either way, that's why Stumpy's not actually recording what you're seeing here. You may also notice, and this is kind of shot at the end of the video and brought back into the middle, you're going to have a little bit of audio at the end of the video here that is straight from the camera out here, because Stumpy was not on for that exact reason. I wanted to make sure we weren't catching anybody's private information. So, all right, guys. Here we go. All right, guys, so what I've done is, this is the primary hard drive that was in there. This is that little 80 gig SATA drive that was in here. I went ahead and I installed a new 500 gig SATA drive right here, chained in with a CD-ROM drive, DVD. And there's your SATA cable going down to here. I had to go into the BIOS to go ahead and enable those two ports. These SATA ports are actually disabled by default, which I thought was kind of interesting. But now we've got 80 primary, 500 storage. Let me show you what that does for us in Windows. All right, we're going to go ahead and boot into Windows here, guys. And one thing you're going to notice is it actually boots considerably faster. I went ahead and formatted the drive, and it had Windows 10 on it, so I went ahead and copied out the CD key out of the registry. And if you guys, anybody out there is curious on how to do that, let me know. It's not too terribly difficult to do, but it keeps you from having to buy another copy of Windows if you already have. So we've got that taken care of. So, all right, let's go ahead and we're going to boot up this computer. Let's see what this does for us. You can probably already tell it's booting up considerably faster. It's actually better than I expected, especially with a primary hard drive as old as that one was and as small as that one was. As you can see, we have a nice clean load of Windows 10 here. And let's go ahead and make sure that it's identifying both of our drives. All right, so as you can see, here's your primary hard drive, here's your DVD drive, and here is your brand new drive with it's a 500 gig drive, nice and clean, formatted, and ready to go. So that ought to be really good for them. All right, guys, so there it is. This is going to be available once again. I know there was somebody in the channel that was actually looking for a computer. Let me know, and I'll have this one here this weekend. You can come down and pick it up. Everything has been installed. It's clean. Everything runs very, very smoothly. I went ahead and completely cleaned out the inside of it, reapplied some thermal paste for the processor. I'm going to go ahead and continue getting the last of these little yucky stickers off of here, so that'll be my last little project, but it'll be ready for you. I'm also going to go ahead and add in a keyboard and a mouse and throw in a monitor with it. So I want you, whoever needs it, you're going to have a fully functioning computer, and it's not going to cost you a thing. So that's how we take care of each other, right? That's what we got to do. All right, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. If you don't mind, do hit that like and subscribe down there. It does help me out a lot. I'm trying to get off the ground here, as you guys know. And I do have that Patreon page set up. So if you're so inclined, you can take care of that too. That'd be awesome. So thanks again for watching. Next video is coming up pretty quick, and I think you're going to get a kick out of it. It's something we haven't done before. So, and yes, I have not forgotten about the Commodore video. It's coming as well. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a fun one. Have a great night. Have a great week. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye.